All right, man. So let's get into it. This is episode 76 of Manifest Monday. We got my brother DJ Zenas in the building.
Hmm.
We got my boy DG in the chat.
Yep.
Diamond in the chat at one time. And of course myself, Ramond. And it's actually something that we was just talking about. It's gonna be like the running topic of the day, man. And it's just like even if you can't make something happen in the exact way that you want to have it, or if you get sick when you're trying to do something, man, sometimes you have to pivot, right? So that's what we wanted to talk today about. It's really just kind of like those moments when you have to pivot, right? I think it's big when you're chasing anything, you kind of have to start getting on like a path of like planning and structuring certain things. And we talk about this stuff during like almost every episode. We talk about like certain keys that a lot of successful people use to kind of get to where they're going. But a lot of times when you're on that path, um it's not that straight path, man. It's just not. What I mean, it's like it ain't the beeline, bro. It ain't the beeline. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
um so let's kick it off like that, Z. So what for you, man, what is it, how important do you think it is to be able to pivot?
I think pivoting is essential, man. I think pivoting is necessary at times, and I think we have to be mindful of when we need to pivot, right? Because I think there's times where we recognize we need to pivot and sometimes don't, right?
That's
I think
facts.
there's plenty of opportunities to pivot in different aspects of life. I think some examples that come to mind are pivoting out of a relationship, right? Sometimes we recognize that maybe this relationship just isn't serving me anymore, right? Or maybe it's just a toxic relationship, and you just find yourself in that space of, well, I'm comfortable here. I don't want to get back into the dating life and stuff like that. And whatever the reason may be or the excuse is, you know that you shouldn't be there, but you're, for whatever reason, just not wanting to pivot. So I think that's an example that comes to mind. A huge example that comes to mind for me is uh, pivoting in your career. Right? Like, and I'm not. I don't mean just
That's
like
what's
in a.
there.
There's multiple different ways. I mean, professional career, your um, life aspirations and goals and whatnot. And so one of the biggest pivots that I think of that comes to mind for myself personally was when I pivoted from just being like a artist to being a DJ, right? I think
Yeah.
that was such a huge power move for me at that point, and honestly, just really just for myself, just in general, right?
Mhm.
I think making that pivot truly opened a lot of doors for me, and just the opportunities to connect with a lot of different creatives and just take me to a lot of different places that I never thought I'd probably go because of music. Um, but I think recognizing those opportunities and being open to it too, I think is another big thing, because it's one thing to recognize that you need to pivot, but it's another thing to act. And I just feel like enough times people just don't take that leap or don't feel the need to like re-navigate, because it's like, well, I'm here and I'm comfortable and maybe complacent, whatever it is. But I think more often than not we need to pivot, and just recognizing that some people, and honestly most people, don't.
Yeah, bro. I think a lot of people know they need to pivot a lot earlier than they actually do, if they ever do. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? It's kind of like and we get to these points where we just know something ain't moving the right way, and you can feel it, right? It's and it shows up in different places of your life, but pivoting is hard, man. It sometimes
Hmm.
is. It's because I think the longer you're in something, the harder it is to do anything outside of
Yeah.
that. You know what I mean? So those pivots are not really like an easy thing to do. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
shout out to Diamond. He said it's never gonna be linear. Sometimes you gotta adjust and adapt just like the seasons. Winter, we make sure we bundle it up and stay warm. Summer we outside naked. Come on, man. Hey man, just like that. Just like that. But that's how important it is. It really is that. Like it's really being adaptable. And it
Yep.
shows up in every different area of your life to be able to, like, the people that know how to adapt is probably just gonna always just win for that,
Hmm.
and whatever that thing is. And you always connected to sports, but it's like, like I think about the sport. Sports is kind of like a cool way to kind of connect to life, and that's why we always do is because there's so many variables that happens in every game, right? Like you come to probably every game with a game plan. Like this is what we're
Hmm.
gonna do. This is what we've been practicing all week. This is what they usually do. You know what I mean? But then once you get there, it's just
Yep.
like a in live, in person thing that can anything can happen. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And in those moments, you know what I mean, you literally have to pivot. You might have to change your whole game plan and you know what I mean, and just be like, yo, that's not working.
Hmm.
This shit is not working. You know what I'm saying? And when you think about it in the sport, it's only maybe 48 minutes to do it. So you 12 minutes in and you got to make a pivot and so a lot of times we have longer than that in real life, but the longer you get set in certain ways, it's just harder to move out of
Yeah.
that. You know, so yeah, man, I think you know, something that like comes to mind when I think of pivoting is just any type of lifestyle change.
Hmm.
And I wanna, that's actually kind of where I was going, Diamond. He said that also investment is another example. But even so, even before getting into investment, getting into pivoting to the type of person that does invest from somebody who's only, you know what I mean, like spent money one way, that's a pivot. That's like all right, I've only spent money like I buy this, I take this piece of money, I give it over there, and then they give me something back,
Hmm.
right? A pivot is kind of like even knowing like okay, even if you're getting into investment, it's like okay, you give some money to something now, and you might see, like you might be investing into a future play that you might not see for years.
Yeah.
But it's a mindset switch, man, and I think that it's something I think about a lot is like how we're in a culture that like the answers is out there. We got chat more. It's you can get any answer that you want to get in life. Chat GPT, Gemini, you got all these AI tools. You can ask, you can go to YouTube. There's just like literally anything in your mind you can go look up, right? But so many people just want to go to certain people that have done it and just ask them the answers of how to do it. I just seen somebody talking about it today. Until you pivot certain things in your life, you're not even ready to do certain things that you're asking about. You're
Hmm.
not even ready to. Like, how do I? Everybody is, everybody has probably at some point typed in, "How do I make a million?" But there's like certain pivots. There's there's like some like 100%, almost 100% ways to do that if you follow the certain blueprint. But are you ready to do that? Is a whole nother question. You almost have to
Yeah.
pivot on how you're moving to even start moving towards a new direction, man. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just think it's an important thing to just to understand that for sure.
Yeah. And I think also another thing that's important to understand is pivoting is often going to be met with judgment, and uh, for better or for worse. And I think a lot of times we talk about it all the time. It's typically projecting, right? But like, there's been people who have made very drastic pivots in life. I'm talking about people who have gone from like very successful 9 to 5 jobs to pivoting to literally being homeless. But then on the other side of that, became millionaires, if not billionaires, right? And so like those are crazy pivots, right? To go from like security, like I was at like a job making 160K a year, and walked away from it to pursue entrepreneurship and something I had no idea was going to work out or not. And for a while, it didn't work out, right? And then on the other side of that, I just continued to see it through, just because I believed in it enough, and then it panned out. But you I think the thing about pivoting is it's a lot of uncertainty. It's scary, to your point that you mentioned before. But like I said, it's necessary in order to grow, I think, more than anything, is you have to pivot, right? You have to um figure out what serves you, what doesn't, and then, continue to just climb that, climb that mountain, right? And I think that leads me to my next question. Have you ever, in your own personal life, like pivoted in a major way? And do you think that was more based on like choice or circumstances?
Mm, mm, I'm trying. Think about a oh man, I feel like we do it often, right?
Yeah.
Like we some pivoting motherfuckers, man. And it's sometimes it's a little bit of both, right? I could think about a specific example is really like, in 2018 was like a crazy like a year, man. You know what I'm saying? I still consider that one of my favorite years of my life. But yeah, and to be specific about it, man, at that time I was working at the Westin Hotel downtown Denver. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I was working there, man, and it was cool for the discounts and shit like that. At the time, and at
Yeah.
that time, we was of course we was making music. We was taking it serious too. You know what I mean? We was dropping projects consistently. We was putting out content, and what I mean, we was heavy into our music bag at that point, and the opportunity that came up to move to Europe and tour out there and do music out there and live out there for a while, right? But I had to, like what I'm saying, I had been in that job for what 2 or 3 years at that point. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
To be able to make this thing happen, I just had to. There wasn't no like extended leave. I had to just quit. Like what I'm saying? It was one of those things. It's like I felt like my whole life, even to the day, a little bit is still, but I balanced like the need to be comfortable versus the need to go after what I really want to go after, right?
Yeah.
And and having a job is always comfortable in a sense. It's like it's a safety net, you know what I mean? Um, but at that time, man, I chose to, kind of cut the reins on the safety net and pivot to just be like, uh, it's funny. Shout out to Marco if he's in here or not. Marco asked me one time, um, "Are you trying to be a front desk manager or are you trying to be an artist?" You know what I mean? And just you got to ask
Yeah.
yourself questions like that one sometimes, and it's like, what? You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
if I lose the job, I will get another. I could get another one at some point, and which I have, But at that point, just cut the safety net, man, and then made that leap, and
Yeah.
we moved to Europe, and I feel like that was one of the like single most pivoting moments in my whole entire life to just know that I could do anything like that. Like traveling overseas seemed at that point such a crazy thing to me. Like, I had only been on one trip. It was that same year too. But to live in another place like that, you know what I mean? I don't think I've grown in a. I think we stayed in Vienna for just around 3 months, and I don't think I've grown more in any 3 months of my life than those 3 months right there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, yeah, bro, that was definitely one of those things, and it was definitely at that point. I don't know if it was circumstance or just maybe both circumstance and
Maybe a
just
little bit of both.
opportunity, a little
Hmm.
bit of both, man. And I was just ready to try something different, man, and just did, man. And most times I can think of when I made a big pivot like that, I never regretted it. I
Never.
know 100% I would have regretted it if I didn't do it. Like, man, I had the opportunity to. Who knows what would have happened? You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So, and we always say we went to Europe, and the reason that we went to
Africa.
Europe for music, and Europe going to Europe is the reason that we went to
Yeah.
Africa. You know what I mean? So,
Yep.
it's crazy. It's crazy how things just line up like that. It don't never look like you think it's gonna look, but got to get out your own way, man. So,
That's it. That's it.
what about for you, brother? What's the? I know you said from being an artist to DJ. Is there ever like a big moment in life though where you was like,
To pivot. Yeah.
yeah,
I think the one that comes to mind most recently is moving to New York, man.
mm-hmm,
That was a huge, huge pivot. I think so. Anyone who has been following the journey or just, been in touch with us just over time, I was in Dallas for, 4 years. Originally born and raised in Denver, lived in Denver for a majority of my life, traveled a lot and whatnot, but I had never moved out of the state, and I knew I always wanted to, and so I just took a leap of faith back in 2019 and just up and moved to Texas, right? And I think that was a huge shift, moving from Texas away from Denver, where away from your comfort zone, away from your family, friends, to just kind of figure it out. And the crazy thing was that was right before the pandemic. I moved in, October of 2019.
mm-hmm,
The damn pandemic happened, March of 2020. So to move to a completely new state and then just be in lockdown in like this crazy ass pandemic and just situation of life was nuts, right? And trying to figure all of that out. And I appreciate that chapter of life. I think Texas was really interesting. I think it was necessary at that time. But then there came a moment where in 2023 where I kept feeling that itch, man, where I was just like, you know what? Texas is cool, but I feel like it's not for me. Like in the sense, like I feel like there's just a bigger purpose for myself elsewhere, and I wasn't entirely sure where. I knew that I needed to be in a hub, right? I knew that I was considering either New York, LA, Atlanta, something along those lines, just where there's more opportunity, especially in the creative space. And so I came and visited New York. The homie Austin, shout out to Austin. I pulled up and visited Austin back in what was that, July of 2023, and had an amazing time. And I had actually been to New York previously, before then, back in like 2012. I think I was in New York, and New York was cool back then, but it really was like I really wasn't a fan of New York like that. It was just cool to experience. But then when I came this time back in 2023, maybe it was just being in a different chapter of life, having gone through different experiences. New York busted my head wide open to the white meat, man. I was just like, man, like it's crazy out here. I think just the lifestyle, the people, it's just a much different pace, plenty of opportunity, and I was just like, I think my eyes just opened in a way that they had never been open before. And so after that trip, that visit in 2023 in July, that's when I really started playing with the idea of moving to New York, right? And after we went to Africa in August of 2023 and came back, and that completely changed our life. You talk about another pivot. Pivoting to the motherland was like one of the best decisions that we ever made in life. But then after returning back from Africa and feeling like this whole um shift in just like purpose in life, in just um who I genuinely was as a person, and my identity. I knew that I ultimately had to make that move, and then I just decided to pull the trigger and just moved out here to New York, November of 2023, and been out here a year and a half. And honestly, think just getting back to who I am as a creative, as a person. I just felt like I was just so withdrawn from my purpose and the essence of who I was for so long in Texas for multiple reasons, right? But um, getting back to that and really exploring and navigating what that looks like out here in New York, and one of the meccas of everything, whether it be business, whether it be entrepreneurship, whether it be music, film, it's all out here, right? And whatever it is that your deepest desires are, whatever your dreams, regardless of how wild, how big they are, you genuinely feel like you can make it happen here in New York. And that's why they say if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. And I've having lived here now, I can absolutely subscribe to that sentiment, man, because life here in New York is different, man, and I'm so happy that I made that move, and it hasn't always been the easiest, right? New York is a tough place to survive, man. It'll break down most people, man, for real. Like it's expensive out here. It's not like it's just transitioning from Texas to New York, man. Texas is one of the most affordable places in the US to New York, where it's like the most expensive. It's fucking nuts, right? But at the end of the day, if you want something bad enough, man, you got to be willing to take that leap of faith, and you have to pivot. And I'm glad I did.
You have to, man, and I'm proud of you for that, man. It's always it's really dope when you see somebody else make a big pivot in life like that. Whether what I'm saying, whether it's especially when it's going after like the things that they really love, or just a decision that they want to make. I always think that's like one of the dopest things for me is like someone just kind of making a decision that like this is so far out my regular like lifestyle, but I
Hmm.
just I feel called to do it, and I'm going to do it. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? I always
yeah,
salute people like that because I know it's not easy, man, and I know some people don't have the opportunity or option to do it. So when people
yeah,
do it, I do feel like I always salute that,
yeah,
man. But shout out to DJ Khalees IV.
yeah.
Is that
That's Val. That's Val. Shout out to
shout
Val.
out to Val, man. Yeah, yeah. Shout out to
Yeah.
Val, man. But she said, I like where you're going with pivot, but I keep seeing that we gotta fail to succeed. So maybe it's knowing when we gotta make that move is
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's actually the point that I actually wanted to move towards too, because I fully feel you on that, right? Like I think sometimes you have to make a distinction between pivot and quit.
Yeah.
Are they, are they the same sometimes? Are they different, right?
Hmm.
And I think making that distinction is a big thing. Is like, am I pivoting or am I quitting something? Because there's times that you gotta just quit shit.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
there's other times where you just gotta pivot. And so for you, what's the difference between those? And when do you know, like, it's time to quit something versus it's time to pivot?
That's a good question. I think there is a difference between pivoting and quitting because I think about it, obviously in our journey, right? Our music journey has looked a lot different in different chapters of our lives, right? From high school to college to right out of college to now, like there's been so many different shifts within our music careers and just overall just who we are as beings. But I think it's because we've made multiple pivots. I think call back to one of the biggest pivots what we made was changing our names. Right?
Facts.
Anyone, anyone
Facts,
who
bro.
knows us know we used to go by PC and DJ Exclusive.
Come on,
Right? And
man.
so, that anyone who's been a part of the journey and has seen it from the get-go, man, shout out because that was a pivot in itself, right? And uh, who we were at 18 is much different than who we are now, right? And but we never quit, right? I think there's been periods where like we took breaks and whatnot. But I think if you just completely quit and give up on something, especially something like music, where anyone who knows us knows how much music is a part of our identity, just quitting and just throwing in the towel is completely different than pivoting. I think the thing about pivoting is it's a shift more than anything. Like for instance, you equated it to sports earlier, like that analogy. There's been plenty of people who may not have had the most successful careers as players, but then had a great career as a coach, right? Like so there's always another opportunity. You can still be passionate about what you love. Maybe you love the game of basketball, maybe you love football, maybe you love soccer, whatever the case may be. Maybe it's just not in your cards that you're going to be an elite player, even though we all have the dreams of being that, right? Anyone would love to be like a fucking LeBron, right? Like anyone would love the opportunity to be that, but sometimes that's just not always in the cards. Maybe you could shift it. Maybe you could be, you know, uh, what's his name? Phil Jackson. I said Paul, Phil Jackson. Right?
Shout out to
Phil
Paul.
Jackson. Whoever Paul Jackson is, man. Shout out to you, my guy. I don't know who that is, but Phil Jackson, right? Phil Jackson, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure Phil Jackson played in the league.
He did. He did.
He
Yeah. Yeah.
did,
Yeah.
yeah, right?
That's a good example. Yeah.
Don't nobody remember Phil Jackson as a fucking NBA player. No one remembers Phil Jackson as an NBA player, but everybody remembers him as a head coach, right? Because he's one of the most winningest head coaches of all time, right? And so I think that's the difference. Now imagine if Phil Jackson had played in the NBA and had I mean he played. I don't know how what you would amount to what you would chalk his NBA career up to. He made it to the league, which is great, right? But imagine if he had just thrown in the towel beyond that and just never went into coaching, right? Like his legacy would be entirely different, right? So um I think the difference is pivoting is more so just understanding that a shift needs to be made, and that sometimes like whatever journey or route that you are going to take to get to like your most fulfillment and the best version of yourself may not be the route that you need to take. Sometimes you have to shift and you have to realign and you have to have those difficult conversations with yourself, and it's not always the easiest thing to do, but I think to your point that you mentioned earlier, being adaptable and understanding that some of the best people and the most successful people in life um, are literally just an embodiment of pivoting and of being adaptable and of just understanding circumstance more than anything.
Hmm.
So, yeah, those are my
Nah, bro.
thoughts.
You hit that you hit that, you knocked that out the park, bro. That's exactly it. There's such a big difference, and I think it's not that hard to distinguish, right? Like if
Hmm.
you're still doing at all the thing that you're going after, then you didn't quit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think a
Yeah.
quit is like when you just stopped it completely. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? I think
Yeah.
that's, when you stop everything to do with it. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? And there are times for
There
that.
are moments. There
There are
are
moments
moments
where
of
you
that.
just got to,
Absolutely.
like, I just have to cut that off completely. But
Yeah.
a pivot might be something different. Like, okay, the goal might be the same. There's certain things I still want to check off, but the path is going to look differently than I just thought. Let me take a
Yeah.
left over here instead of, I thought it was this way, but I'm being called to this way to still hit that same goal over there. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? Like, and that's why I think, like, certain things that we're doing now is a pivot, but it's still like the things that we do are still grounded in music. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, I've been called to, like, to the DJ side a little bit. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
I'm easing in there, and I'm still, like, songwriting, and of course, working on my own stuff. But just the pivot of that, and to create something like with you and V, finding out we love travel, we love helping people, we love music, and creating something that is a
Yep.
pivot to us to do all three our own way
Yeah.
and take people along with us. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Remote Escapes was born out of that pivot, I feel like, and just creating the thing that's like we can put together some dope events when we go places. We can DJ, we can perform, we can, you know what I mean? We can travel and help people along the way when we're out there, man. So I think just, it didn't look like when I was 18 and I just thought I was going to be J. Cole. You know what I'm saying? Or, it
Yeah.
don't look like that. But when you talk about, like, we didn't now performed in how many different countries and DJ'd in different places and been around the world. If somebody just told me at that age, like, I would have thought I was J. Cole. They told me, like, these are the things you're gonna
Yeah.
do. You're going, you know what I'm saying? You're going executive producer soundtrack for animated. You know what I mean? I'd be like,
Yeah.
damn, like, I'm about to do all that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it never looks like you just thought it was gonna look.
Hmm.
But at the same time, is um making those pivots to what makes sense at the time for you,
Yep.
and structuring around your lifestyle is so important, bro. You know what I mean? Like I said,
Yeah.
I shout out to certain people, and like I said, that, like, that New York move for you was like, that shit was always, it's like a salute, man. It's like there's
Yeah.
certain pivots that just make sense. You know
Yep.
what I mean? And
Absolutely.
yeah, man,
I
yeah,
think I
man. So
I think to sum it up, man, pivoting is evolving. I think is really what it boils down to. I think it's just understanding that in order to get from A to B, I might have to take the C route, right? And that's just what evolution is, right? If you look at it on a map, right? If you're trying to go from here to whatever that destination is, you know, whatever route that you had initially planned, whether you put that in Google Maps, whether you put that in Apple Maps, whether you put that in MapQuest, however you decided to map that shit out, this was the route that I was going to take. But sometimes you encounter uh, highways that are shut down along the way. You encounter roads that no longer exist. You just encounter shit. You might break down along the way. Whatever the case may be. But as long as you continue to make that journey, regardless of how many alternative routes you take, you're gonna get to the final destination, right? Quitting is just throwing in the towel. And I'm going back home. I just made a complete U-turn and just went right back home. That's what quitting looks like. I
yeah,
think pivoting is evolving, and I think that's an important thing to call out. But to your point, I do think that there are moments where you do need to quit. It's absolutely important. Sometimes a pivot isn't sufficient, right? Sometimes you have to quit something, right? Um, so that leads me to two questions. Are there, is there ever an instance where you had to quit something in life and you felt like it worked out for the better? And then also, do you feel like you ever had to pivot and you felt like you regretted it?
mm. You're gonna hit me with two
Two,
great questions back to back.
two,
Y'all,
the two
everybody,
B's come.
ask those two questions again, and everybody in here answer those. That's crazy. So you said what?
So, have you ever quit something in life and felt like it worked out for the better? And have you ever pivoted and felt like you regretted it because maybe it didn't work out for the best?
Um, um, hmm. Quit something. The main thing I could think of is probably just relationships, man. And it's just, I think for me, it's like certain relationships that, like, just didn't serve you at that point. I have a couple friendships and just old past relationships that I had that, like, we're not gonna get specific. We're not name dropping here. but it's but to be honest, it was just certain relationships in my life that just stopped making sense, man. And it's like as much as you tried, or you know, sometimes you just realize that reached its end. It reached its end point.
Hmm.
Like there's really nowhere we can go. Like you know what I mean? Like I think sometimes when you're younger, you're around people, um, and you might be the same at that time, but when people grow differently, at that point, it's like you might just that your chapter might have just ended, and I think that's okay. But it's hard
Hmm.
to do that, like when you are connected to these people from time. You know what I mean? And so I I uh I definitely think that's definitely one of the pivots that just had to be done. You know what I mean? That like
Yeah.
that I mean not even pivot, that's a quit. Like that's
Yeah.
like a like this this is
Doing the
just
time.
this over with. This is
Yeah.
over with. And I do
Yeah.
feel like I felt lighter after that.
Yeah.
I felt lighter after cutting off, certain relationships in my life, man. So
Hmm.
that's for sure one of it. And the second part was have you ever pivoted and regretted it? Uh, I try not to live with too many regrets, bro.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've done a lot of pivoting. Um, I I almost I think it's like in my DNA to have to pivot.
Hmm.
Shout out to my Geminis. You know what I'm saying? If I think we kind of be shaking and moving, man. I think it's like
Yeah.
in our DNA to have to pivot a little bit. But I'm trying to think. You might have to circle back around to that one, but not. I can't think of too many things that I just like regretted the pivot.
Yeah.
Like,
I
'cause
agree.
I try not to just think about that. Like I think about, I don't know. I try to think about like if I've done it, it's in my past, and that's part of who I am now and where I'm going. So
Hmm.
yeah, I'm more on that side. So
Yeah. And shout out to Val again. She was saying, what was she saying? When you are thinking of all this, is it about becoming successful in your creative business, or music, whatever, serves you, or just finding our happiness? I think it's both, right? I think when I think about all this, I think about it from like a general perspective. I think it's really all encapsulating, right? So um I think in a lot of ways my creative journey is tied to my happiness because I feel like it's my overall purpose. Like I think it's what drives me and what motivates me in life.
mhm.
But it's not my only source of happiness either, though. Right? So um, I think success looks a lot different, uh, and uh, to Ramon's point earlier, I think being being successful used to look like I had to be Drake, right? I had to be the
Yeah,
hottest thing, the biggest person on the planet, right? But nowadays, man, if I was making 100K off of music alone, just whatever it is that I'm passionate about, remote escapes, music, shit, you know, actually, I can't say social media because I don't love social media, so never mind. But
maybe
if
maybe
it's
maybe maybe
anything,
manifest Mondays.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like if we got
Maybe manifest
we
the
got
pod or something like that.
yeah.
Couldn't nobody tell me I didn't make it. Couldn't nobody tell me I wasn't successful, man. I'm making six figures off of doing something that you love. I think it's a completely different story.
Make it
Uh,
anything too. Like I just want to cut in right there too, because we think that has to be successful. But if you ever made $1 doing something that you love off that thing, man, like don't let people tell you that it has to look a certain way,
yeah,
bro. Like there's some success in that, bro. You created something, put it out into the world, and somebody found value enough to support it in some way, whether that was buying a ticket, coming to the show, buying the music, you know what I'm saying, buying the merch. If you paint, somebody bought your work, and don't if even if you didn't live off it forever, you tried it and you put it out to the world and you did it, man.
shout out,
Shout out to everybody who found the success in that, bro, for
yeah.
real.
Shout out to anybody who's just trying, man. I think
Yeah,
that's the biggest thing, man. It's just I think anyone with a bigger purpose, when you have a lot of ambition and a lot of goals and just drive and just a lot that you just want to see through. I think more than anything, man, sometimes you got to take a step back and applaud yourself, man, because it's important, right? I think we get tunnel vision all the time, where it's just like we have to be doing something a particular way, or in the day of social media where our lives have to look a particular way in order to be successful, man. And it's just, nah, man, as long as you're figuring it out, as long as like you're inching your way towards your best version of yourself and you're overall happy, man, can't nobody tell
Come on,
you shit.
come, come
So
on.
I'll say that, but also just to circle back on, like, because I didn't even answer the question, but I think I'm kind of gonna piggyback off of like what you said. I definitely have quit something. Definitely relationships, I think, is one that comes to mind. I even think even beyond romantic relationships, there's people in my life that I've just like quit. I quit hanging around a lot more, right? Like, and I mean that like friendships and stuff like that. It's not that there was any like maliciousness behind it, like or like or anything like that at all. It's just I knew that in order to become the best version of myself and to, I think, just continue to fuel myself, I needed to be around people who ultimately poured life into me and spoke positivity into me and like ultimately just believed in me. I think belief is bigger than anything, right? I think people, when you're surrounded by people who genuinely believe in you and want to see you fulfill like just your overall best version of yourself and just succeed, there's nothing more empowering than that, right? I don't think there's any like having friends like we do and having the network that we do, that's irreplaceable, man. There's no dollar amount that you could tie to that, right? And so um, do think I've had to quit relationships and conversations with certain people and had to focus and shift otherwise and conversing with more people that I aligned with and just even people that I aspire to be like. You got to surround yourself with those type of people, right? And that's a pivot. But yeah, as far as like regret though, there's nothing that I've really done that I've regretted. So I'll definitely say that. But um
Hit a couple of these comments real quick. I feel you on that though, brother.
if you
Uh,
can buy a happy meal off of what you create, you're winning. Hey man, I feel that.
come
Shout
on,
out.
man.
Shout out. And then DG said, can too many pivots be considered negative? For example, you have a business partner who always change and plan, etc. Absolutely. I think you can overly pivot. I do think that exists. I do think that um there has to be, I don't want to necessarily say a balance, but there has to be some level of consistency um in regards to your pivot, right? Because if you pivot every 2 months, like what are you expecting to happen? Like you have to see some things through, right? And if you want them to succeed, right? So I do think overly pivoting absolutely exists.
That's a fact. I fully agree there, man. And real quick, I want to shout out to Tina, man. Shout out to Miss T, man. She said, "Many pivots, no regrets." And I just want to shout out to her, man. She had I seen it in real time. Her pivoting into her business, pretty crafty, and
Oh, that's
she has a
fire.
craft business in Denver. If you guys are ever looking for like custom crafts and stuff like that, I'm talking about like everything you can think of. Like, and I'm talking about it ain't no basic stuff. He's like, her shit is fire.
Yeah,
Like, she did a lot of the design stuff for even remote escapes when if anybody got one of those goodie bags, man. So
yeah,
she designed the shirts when we was out there too, man. So
yeah. Shout
shout
out
out
Miss
to
T, man.
T. Yeah, shout out to Miss T and Pretty Crafty for sure.
Yeah. And
Um,
shout out to Val, what Val said too. Your passion, talent connection. When your passion and talent connects with others, helping others, you become your purpose. And I think that's something that we talk about all the time. When your purpose is bigger than just you, that's when you know that you're onto something. I think, and that's honestly where I feel like you start to see more. Uh, um, chance or luck start to happen in your life because it's so much bigger than you. And I think that's really just the biggest thing of human nature is just understanding that it's not just about you. It's not just about the person next to me. I mean, it's about all of us. And I think when you're ultimately just trying to make the world a better place and for other people, that's when, for whatever reason, the stars start to align. And I think it's just because God in the universe just happened to reward shit like that because I think there's just not enough of that, especially in this capitalistic world where everybody's just selfish as hell. So
mhm. And I love that quote too. She said, "I really like what Jay Shetty says. When your passion and talent connects with helping others, you become your purpose.
Yeah.
That's so fire, man. I feel like when most people start doing something like a creative thing, it is it is selfish at the beginning. Like
Hmm.
you want to create, and then you think a lot of people become entitled to thinking because you created something, somebody's supposed to just support it.
Yeah.
I created it, and even if it's good, like people are like supposed to support it, right? Is it helping anybody though? Right? Like even if the
Hmm.
music is good, but it's not talking about anything. If it's good, then is it helping anybody? Right? Like is the message in it? You know what I mean? Like there's certain songs I do feel like help people get over the hump, but when you start creating with that in mind of like, what am I a part of that is actually going to help people, even if that is a song, it kind of changes how you approach every single thing. I even heard this thing talking about recently on social media. It was like, if you have any type of, I don't know, just when if you're looking at like growing your social media at all, right? Like in any type of thing that you're doing, whether it's business or just like, a brand that you have, just think about but before you post, instead of posting like just your trip in um to the Maldives, right? Like like a couple pictures of you out there. Think about how could this post help somebody else when they see it. That changes the whole
Hmm.
post, right? Like so then if you think about that first, you're like, okay, maybe I could show somebody how I used American Express credit card and got a trip to the Maldives for free after you know what I mean? After paying off so much on this credit card or something like that. Like this
Hmm.
is how I did it. I'm guaranteeing you more people are going to want to look at that post than just somebody just out on, you know what I'm saying, walking the beach. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's them involved. It's them involved.
Yeah.
So I think it's always dope when you like start to look at the things that you do in art, business, everything, and just think about how it can help somebody, man. That's
Hmm.
it's and what people don't realize is like even even though you shouldn't help people to help yourself, a lot of times when you do help people, you naturally will help yourself. The more
Absolutely.
the more people you help, the more successful you're gonna be. That's just that 100%.
Yeah. Most
We got
most times, I do. I do
I
feel like
I think you'll be blessed because we don't have to always be monetary either. But I think you'll
agree,
be blessed if you helped a
agree,
hundred
agree.
thousand people in the world do something. Your karma alone will have you blessed, bro.
Yeah,
So that's
I agree. I don't want to necessarily say I disagree, but like I do agree in the sense that if you continue, it's not always monetary though. Is I think the big piece. I'm glad that you hit on that because you d- the way when it comes to helping others, it doesn't always necessarily have to be monetary. But I think about people like the MC Hammers in life and stuff like that, where they were trying to help everybody else and ended up going broke because of it, right? And I think that is something when you're thinking about it from like a monetary perspective too, and even beyond that, sometimes it could be like, an overall like well-being, right? Like your mental well-being, your energy. Sometimes you can give too much to where it's just like you have no more of yourself to give, right? And so I think you do also have to be mindful of that. Like you have to take breaks and to the point we're talking about. Maybe you have to pivot. Maybe it's just like, man, I don't have enough to give right now. I got to recharge. I got to take a step back. I think it's important to remember those things. I think it's absolutely always about servicing others, more than anything else. But I think you also have to be mindful of like your overall well-being. And sometimes you can overly give, right? And so I do think you have to be mindful of that too. That's all I'm saying, more than anything.
I hear you. I do hear you.
Uh, um, is there anyone like famous or even not famous, just anyone that you personally know that you admire for how they pivoted?
Uh, uh, yeah, there's so many that come to mind. Um, I'm out the gate. I'm gonna just do one quick one. Just my mom's, man. Like I remember, it was kind of cool. Like, my mom had me when she was 19. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? So she was 19, right? I mean, right around, I'm talking about like right around the same time as like prom. Like, you know what I'm saying? She had me when she was 19, and then she had, my brother and my sister. And then you gotta think about then she's a mom up until like you know what I mean until we like leave for college, right?
Yeah.
So that's that whole period of time. She can't really make no decision with us not in mind for that
Mm-hmm.
whole time. You
Yep.
know what I mean? Because there's always somebody in the house or somebody you gotta, you know what I mean? So just on a specific pivot, I feel like when she, after we all, went off to college and was out of the house and stuff like that, the biggest pivot she made was um to move to Arizona. She had a position open in her job that was going to, take her out here. And I always thought that was dope. I always tell her to this day, man, that it was really it was it was cool to see like that was one of the first decisions I seen you get to make that you didn't have to like take anybody else into
Mm-hmm.
consideration to make it.
Yep.
And it's a big life decision change too.
Yeah.
So that's one of that's really one of the first one that came to mind. You know what I mean? Of course, there's a lot
Mm-hmm.
of like famous ones, but I'm just gonna leave it there. I'm gonna just drop the mic on that one time. Shout out to
Yeah.
Mom
Shout out to
Dukes,
Mom
man.
Dukes,
You
man.
know what I mean?
Shout out to Mom Dukes,
Shout out to
man.
Mom Dukes, man.
You got to give a
Yeah,
shout out to Mom Dukes, man.
yeah, yeah.
Always.
For sure. For sure.
I think the first person that comes to mind for me, and there's plenty of people that come to mind, but I would say Be Easy,
Ooh,
Eric. Uh,
that's a good one.
I think that's one of the first people that comes to mind, man. We're talking about a couple of years ago. He had a very successful 9 to 5, and he was doing well. And he just decided that he was gonna take on entrepreneurship, head on, and started, a junk removal business. And uh, f also something that I wanted to throw out there too, from his 9 to 5, which he was very successful with, he was able to buy his mom a crib, right? And so that's even like more uncertainty of just like, man, I bought my mom a crib and, like with this job, and now I'm leaving that said job to pursue entrepreneurship where there's no certainty whatsoever, right? But we're talking about somebody who did, you know, uh very well for himself last year. He announced it, like what he hit just as far as his numbers. And this year, he's on track to, make 6 figures, so I think I think that's just a huge testament to just who he is as a person. I think he's always been somebody that I've admired just from like the outside looking in. uh he's resilient, and I think, in making that pivot and just believing it and willing it, into life, into existence, right? He's like, there is no excuse, like I got to get up and get it, working odd hours of the night and in the day, in the early mornings, whatever the case may be, just to make shit happen. But to now see that reward paying off and him being able to employ other people, and ultimately just what that looks like for not just himself but for others. And I think that's just huge testament to him. So shout out to Q Hall Jump Removal, because Be Easy's doing big things, man.
Big facts, man. Big facts, man. That's fire, man. Shout out to BEs, man. That's my dog, man.
Yeah,
Every time I'm out there, and everybody knows if you out there, you probably seen one of them signs too, man. If you ever seen Q Hall, that's
yeah,
shout out to Be Easy, man. If you ever seen that in Denver, you probably have seen
yeah.
it. Like let's just put it like
You
that. Like
absolutely have.
yeah, you've
You
seen it. You know what I
see it.
mean? So shout out to my
Um,
guy.
shout out to Val. She said she's shouting out Omar. Shout out to DJ Nunez. He
Shout
he
out
quit his
Omar.
day job to pursue obviously DJing and just the overall entertainment business. So I do want to give a shout out to DJ Nunez, man, out there doing big things.
Never look
Um,
back too. Never look
Never look
back, man. Shout out.
back, man. Um, Shout out to Miss T. She's giving a shout out to her son Terrell,
Shout
and shout out to
out to
DG,
Terrell, man.
man. I appreciate you, DG. DG, she's shouting out Remote Escapes, man. Yeah, man. That's something that we're extremely proud of, man. We just took a group of people to Africa for the first time, back in March, like a little over a month ago, and that was an amazing experience, and a lot more bigger things to come, right? I think being that bridge between America and the motherland, and just recreating the narratives around a lot of different places throughout Africa, and honestly, just around the world. It's not just Africa; it's going to extend a lot farther beyond that, but it's something, and it's a vision that we had, and just to see it through to this was literally an idea that we came up with like literally like a year ago. I think it was March of last year.
Exactly a year ago. Yeah.
March of last year, where we came up with the idea of remote escapes, and we took our first inaugural trip, last month, and popped out to Rwanda and Zanzibar, man. And so there's a lot of great things in the works, and I love to see these people shouting other people out, and just all the good and all the positivity that's being poured into the world, and honestly just around us. People we're directly linked to, our network. I think it's always we always get so like infatuated and so caught up in like the limelight, right? And looking at like celebrities and all these people, like I hate the idea of celebrity, right? I really don't like it. Like I think we've over glorified the lives of celebrities and shit like that. Shit is weird. But there's people around you, people we have direct access who are doing amazing things on the daily, right? So I think it's always important to take a step back and applaud those people and applaud yourself too, man. If you're out there, whatever it is that you're doing, just like we said earlier, if you're making a dollar off of what you love, if you're helping bless somebody else off of doing what you love, if you're able to pay your light bill doing whatever it is that you love, it don't matter, man. You're still making it happen, and can't nobody take that away from you. So just, like I said, just see that shit through, man, because it's gonna work out.
See that shit through. Come on, man. Shout out to you, Val. Shout out to you, Val, for chapping in today too, man.
Yeah, shout out to Val, man. And Val's a dope DJ too. Like don't let her just downplay it. She out here doing big things on the DJ scene too, man. So
That's a fact, man.
and then
And
shout out
speaking
to
of,
DG. He said pivoting all over the world, man. You damn right.
that's a fact, man. And shout out, I mean, and we here, man. It's I guess it's the shout out hour, man. Shout out to DG and his brothers, man, for pivoting into that
Man,
the home care business, man. And y'all, they he said it, not us, but they doing well for
yeah.
themselves, man. Let's leave it out there. Let's leave it like that, man. They
Yeah.
doing really well for themselves, but just pivoting into a new venture as with your family, man, and
Hmm.
and taking it to the type of heights that you have, bro. It's truly inspiring, man. A lot of people, have excuses on why things are not happening for them, but like when you think about what you and your brothers have done since you guys have been out here, is it's like it kind of starts taking away like there if you want to do something, you just do it. You know what I'm saying? And it to the point that you bought your pops, y'all bought your pops a car for his was it his birthday this year or last year
Yep.
or something.
Yep.
Yeah, man.
Yep.
I mean, come on, man. I mean, I don't. It is. I'm not gonna lie, man. That you start realizing where the blessings really are in your life sometimes, and just to be inspired this much around the people that's just around me like that. Like everybody around me just is inspiring. It's crazy.
Hmm.
Like what I'm saying, and they tell me the same. Like I'm inspired by what it's like to be exchange that inspiration between a circle of people is like that's where my real blessings in life is right now, man. So shout out to y'all, man. Shout out to y'all, man. Well, I think this is a pretty much a good spot as we talking about the whole episode of pivoting, man.
Yep.
So it's about that time. Z, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, man. Y'all know what time it is, man. At the end of every episode of Manifest Mondays, we got to put y'all on the spot. This is the Spot Network. So, what we always like to hit people with is a little provocative, something that sparks debate, sparks deep thoughts. So, that being said, we're always going to hit y'all over the head with a would you rather question. So, today's would you rather question is, would you rather
Simon said you be changing the terms and conditions at the end.
that's what man. Nah,
What you got? What you got for us?
he be changing the terms and conditions all the time. So I don't want to hear it, man. Actually, no, you P always be the one changing all the terms and conditions each and every time, man. I'm like, fam, like we making it
What you
more and
got
more
for us?
difficult each and every time. But today's would you rather question is would you rather pivot into something that you're passionate about, but have to start at the bottom, or stay at the top, but it be doing something that no longer fulfills you or serves you. But you at the top. So I'm gonna ask that question again. Would you rather pivot into something that you're passionate about, but have to start at the bottom? Like, I mean, at the bottom,
The very
the
bottom, like the
bottom,
mail room,
like from
the mail room.
from you got to start at minimum wage, like the bottom, like, or be at the top, but doing something that does not fulfill you at all. Said I'd
Shout
rather be
out
at
to
the top
Kels.
of some bullshit.
Shout out shout out to Kills, man. He kept it a buck. Said I'd rather be at the top of some bullshit, man. Getting to it, man.
DG said, "How much am I making at the top?" I'm gonna let Ramon put the stipulation because you know he's gonna change him anyways. So I'm gonna let him put the stipulations on whatever that looks like because you know he gonna if I say something he gonna change it, you know, and then just make it more. He gonna
Let's
push that line further and
let's
further out.
let's be semi realistic. Look it up real quick. Z, what's the average uh income of a CEO?
Let's find out.
You know what I mean? Um, but shout out to Tina. She said I'm at the bottom. Let's
So
get
it,
the
it
real
depends.
stipulations.
It depends on the size of the company. So
Let's say like a medium to big size business, like not
so
like
yeah,
not Jeff Bezos, but like a
yeah.
medium sized business.
So the average income of a mid-sized firm or company for CEOs is $890,000.
That's what it is. That's a good number.
Yeah.
That's what you're at the top. You're at the top. You know what
So
I'm saying?
yeah,
And it's a medium sized business, so you know you working crazy too. You working crazy hours. You know what I'm saying? 890. Jeez, that's some money though. 890. Jeez. Diamond said, CEO, no questions asked. I'll be at the top for 890, huh? 890's cracking. I'm not, that is the top though. That's the top of mid-sized firm. That's all right. So we got, so Kels and Diamond said the top. Tina, shout out to V in the building. She said at the bottom, the climb is very rewarding. Ooh, shout out to that. Come on, man. And then Anifa said the same. Start at the bottom. The passion is like a gas pack. You're going to show up different. Come on, come on, man. Diamond said laptop, stove, top, rooftop. I'm on the top. Oh man. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and jump in here because, we got a split room today. That's always dope, man. But shout out to my people at the bottom, man. Started at the bottom, now we here, man. Shout out to the bottom of, you know what I'm saying? I'm with y'all, man. And for the same reasons that V and Hanifa said too, man. That climb of during doing the things that you're passionate about is just different. The wins feel different when it's something that you're passionate about. It just does. You know what I
hmm
mean? Making $20 off selling the album versus, like, you know what I'm saying, working a job you hate, and if it's $20 an hour, that's two different, complete different feelings.
yeah,
It's just two complete different feelings.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that it's yeah, for me it's no question, man. I guess it depends on where I'm at in that point in life, right? Like
Now we talking about right now.
right now. Yeah, I'm starting at the bottom, man. we started we started a business last year. That's
Facts,
what, you know what
facts.
I'm saying? Started a business last year, man. You know what I mean? So yeah, bro. At some point I'm gonna feel like I'm unfulfilled, man, and you know, I I'm just one of those people that there's not an amount of money at some point that I think that could just pull me out of doing things that I'm passionate about.
Yeah,
I just don't think so. I don't think so, man. I've had opportunities to do certain things that was going to require too much of me,
yeah,
and has just turned it down. It ain't been 890, but I know that I'm the type of person that if I did apply myself, that I could probably get there if I wanted to, for real. But
yeah,
I maybe I'll never get there in that business because I don't truly want to,
yeah,
So it's something I couldn't do. So
yeah.
Shout out to my people at the bottom, man. Come on, man.
Shout out to the people at the bottom, man. I think I'm gonna have to agree, man. I think I would go. I'm gonna go with starting at the bottom, man, because to the same point, I think the overall trajectory of going from the bottom to the top is different. It just hits different. I think people who are already at the top and then accomplish something like it's does it feel good? Absolutely. Right? But it's just like, does it hit the same? Nah, it doesn't. It doesn't. Like it's just I think, and especially at this stage of life, think passion is more, it means more to me than anything. It's I'm anyone who knows me, I'm passionate. I'm just an extremely passionate, a very purposeful person. Like that's just what drives me. It's what motivates me. And uh as much as like I love money, money isn't what I'm motivated by. I think do I want to make a lot of it? Absolutely, because then I can like bless and reward my people around me, ultimately like leading into my ultimate goal of being a philanthropist. But there's no reason why I'm saying I can't do that doing something that I'm passionate about, right? Because to your point, if I'm doing something that doesn't fulfill me, there's only so long that I'm going to last before I break, right? Because you I even even in my gig right now, it's just like, fam, like you be wanting to quit every day, and I think about like, imagine like, imagine as a CEO, bro. You know how much bullshit. Shout out to Kels because Kels said that shit earlier. He said, I'd be at the top of some bullshit. Do you understand the lifestyle that would be coming with that? Like, it's not like you just getting a CEO title and just like cruising through life, bro. Your fucking life is probably crazy, man. Like the shit that you have to do for that 890K is like you're not gonna have another life. Like any passion projects that you have and all the other shit that you want to do, that shit is out the window, bro. Because there's gonna be so much that's demanded from you for that 890K. They're not just giving you 890K for no reason, bro. Like they gonna squeeze each and every bit of that 890K out of you. And granted, that's a very nice life. And I'm not gonna like make it sound like it's not, but there's only so long I would be able to do that shit because I barely want to do that shit now. And I like there's certainly not as much that's demanded out of me now. And so I can only imagine what that would look like then. So yeah, I'm fuck it. I'm starting at the bottom.
I'm with you, man. I'm with you, man. Shout out to shout out to Kels, man. He said one thing I truly admire about y'all on this podcast, y'all are dreamers and doers. He said being vocally self-critical, I'm just a doer. Dreams too small. I play it safe. And ain't nothing wrong with that, man. Ain't nothing
Yeah.
wrong with building brick by brick on the certain things that you have, man. And it's cool. Like I think sometimes when you have like I would just say, don't ever let nobody shame your dream too. Like whatever that is for you, it's just like it is, and that's I think for a long time, when you young and coming up and trying to figure it out in music, like the dreams, it's not necessarily cool to, people might think it's cool to be a rapper or like, cool to be a musician or an artist or, you know what I mean, a creative. A lot of times when you going through life, it's a lot of you get a lot of weird looks when it's not working out. It's a lot of like, oh yeah, you do that. Oh,
Yeah.
that's cool, man. It's like it's a lot of like not, you know what I mean. It's a lot of like non-belief
That's
that
it.
comes with doing that, the things that the dreaming big, and because people don't believe you can do things like that. They just don't. They see you, they can touch you. They don't see it. They don't see your vision, man. So I, I'm just always on the side that I can't let anybody sway what I see, and I don't ever shame nobody for like whatever they're doing and dreaming and moving towards. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? There ain't no. I don't think there's a dream that's too small, man. You know what I'm saying? So, it's just it's just what you want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Facts, man. Uh,
He's over here horsing around, man. He's saying talking about all the passion he could find for 890,000. See, you always trying to 8 years and quit, man. You not
nah.
10, brother.
Nah. Nah. Mm-mm. I'm good. I'm good. But shout out to Kels, man. I did just want to say I definitely appreciate the words, man. I think that is something that we all pride ourselves on is really just being both dreamers and doers. I think it's not always easy to do both because you can definitely get caught up on either side, right? On either end of the spectrum. And you know, hyper doer is gonna do some shit. Hyper dreamer is just gonna dream some shit and then just never get shit done. So I think trying to find that like middle ground is something that we're always in pursuit of. And I just do want to say that I applaud us for like literally just trying, bro. Like we just keep showing up to the plate each and every day and just swinging, man. Sometimes we make it to the fences, sometimes we don't. Some shit. Sometimes we strike out. But at the end of the day, man, just keep showing up. And the crazy thing about momentum and just life is the more and more that you step up to the plate, the more and more the odds become in your favor. And the crazy thing is, I feel like the shift is happening right before our eyes. I genuinely feel like what all the shit that we've been working towards uh, our entire lives, but I would say specifically like these last couple of years is coming to fruition, man. And I really see it happening. It's crazy, like when you're navigating all this shit on just a day to day, it doesn't feel like it's monumental changes that are happening because they're not. They're incremental, right? But all the shit that we've been working towards and all the shit that's been stacking up and compounding over time is truly starting to manifest. And I feel a shift, man. I really feel like things are gonna really pay out in a major way in the next year or so. So yeah, I just wanna give a shout out to Mikels for the salute, man, and even to him, like with wanting to play it safe, man. It doesn't matter like whatever it is that you decide to do, whether you play it safe or not. As long as you're happy, that's all that matters.
Boom.
And shit, at the end of the day, we happy, yeah. So
Come on, man. That's important, man. Big facts there, man. Big shout out to everybody, man. Everybody's tapped in this episode, man. Shout out to y'all,
yeah,
man. Shout out to everybody on here, man. Dreamers and doers, man. I think it's dope because I really appreciate that compliment because I think that whatever type of energy you put out, you naturally people gravitate that's similar to that
yeah,
usually.
yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean? So it's dope that like we just keep running into more dreamers and doers, and those are the type of people that I always love being around. You know what I'm saying? Because we connect for that reason, man. So yeah, shout out to everybody on here, man.
yeah.
Y'all was locked in today, man.
Shout out
Come
to
on, man. The
everybody who
chat
tapped
was
in, man.
popping today.
The chat was popping, man. So shout out to everybody who tapped in, man. We gonna be back on regular schedule next week. We try not to do this, right? But hey, sometimes just like the topic of today, sometimes you gotta pivot, man. So shit, but we still consistent, man. We ain't missed a fucking single week. This is week 76, and we still
Come
here
on.
manifesting. So we'll be back to regular schedule programming next week. Catch us next Monday, man. Catch us every Monday, most times, at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Be sure to follow us at the Spot Network Official on all platforms. I repeat, at the Spot Network Official on all platforms, but specifically YouTube. Be sure to tap in with us there. We got some exciting things in the works, man. But we appreciate everybody who tapped in and continue to tap in, man. Keep supporting. We love y'all, man. Salute and fucking keep going out there and crushing that shit, man. Have a good week.
And if you need to, pivot. All
Pivot, man.
right, y'all.
All right, y'all.
Be easy, man.